Hey, thanks for stopping by. My name's Thomas, and this is Zarbo Audio Projects. Recently, I did a video on this racetrack style buyout speaker from Parts Express. I wanted to see if I could make a decent Bluetooth radio using a pair of these. And I determined by the end of the video that it did perform well enough, though with a fair amount of roll-off on the top end, over 7,000 hertz or so. But they did sound decent when I played music through them, and that's really the acid test, so I decided to go ahead and use them for this project. My original intention was to take a pair of these, cut the mounting ears off, and angle the speakers outward a bit, mounting the Bluetooth amp board somewhere in the middle. I hadn't worked out all the details yet, but that was the basic idea I had in my head. However, after taking a good long look at the plastic cabinet and considering all the angles and the fact that the vent was at the rear, I decided to scrap that idea. I think that maybe by trying to make things easier on myself by using the existing cabinet, I was actually going to make things a lot harder. So my new plan, as you can see by this rough sketch, is to create a simple square box with the speakers both facing front. The amp will still be in the middle, but now it'll be at the bottom. And, you know, I think I'd like to add a little visual feature. This cool VU meter that I assembled and demoed in the previous video. If you haven't seen that video, check it out. It's pretty good. Since the cabinet will be a tall, vertically oriented box, I thought that the VU meter would really kind of fit right into that aesthetic and add kind of a cool factor that most Bluetooth radios don't have. I also plan to add a base to it to lift it up a bit and give it, hopefully, some extra stability. So let's take a look at how I took this speaker from this to this. So I've got this port here, and I've got this cool little lizard cam. My sister gave that to me a few years back, so I'm going to set that up there and put this inside the vent just to see what I can see. Actually, I'll just do it with one hand. I'll let you view this. I don't know how good that's showing up, but I'm sticking it in there. Well, first of all, that's the outside of it. And this looks like a colonoscopy gone horrible, but let me give this a try. Alright, ooh, okay. Put that in. Yeah, it looks like there's just sort of a blob of foam there. I can't see around the corner with this thing. I have a fitting for the end of this, but it's the opening of the vent so small, so it looks like it's just foam there. So I'm just going to give this a nip and probably just cut it couple inches, something like that. The vent goes in about 1 3/4 or so, so I'll just cut it like right about here, nip these ears off, and then take another look and see what's inside of that. Okay, I'm just going to give this a cut and see what's inside of it. Well, I think I need a longer jigsaw blade. This one's too short. Alright, I'm just going to take my jigsaw blade. I got a longer blade in there. I'm just going to cut along the line and we'll just get in there and see what it looks like. Okay, well, as you can see, hopefully, I don't know if you can see that. I can barely see it. I didn't quite get all the way through the vent, and I do see a little bit of foam sticking out here. So let me just shove that in there. I got to go another, it looks like 1/2 inch or so to get, maybe I'll go another inch just to get a little closer and get on the other side of the vent. So let me do that real quick. We're learning as we go here, so I'll cut off another inch or so. Goggles back on and give this a little rip and see if we can get in a closer look here. Okay, it's hard for me to see on the tripod what's actually showing up on the screen, but what we've got here is 2 little neodymium elements, motor elements, and they're just connected to the cone, and we've got that little circuit board there, which is basically what the connector connects to. Well, I've got a couple of marks, lines scribed on that. Hopefully you can see that. I'm just going to take my Dremel tool with a abrasive cutting bit, and I'm just going to cut along those lines, and then we'll see what we got there. Funny thing happens when you're cutting this plastic, it actually melts it and kind of sticks it back to itself, so I gotta, there it goes. Well, take my glasses off so I can see, but it's fine. Okay, this is the carnage left over from all that dremeling, and we've got a bunch of little carcasses with a little bit of acoustic material in it. A whole bunch of plastic junk all over the place. This is basically what they look like when they're done. You can see the sides. This side and this side are roughly perpendicular to the big horizontal pieces. Everything's sort of intact. So I did all the ones I had. I think I ordered 8 of them. Well, that's it. I mean, I had 8 of them, so I just cut them all out while I was at it. But that took me 20 minutes to do all that. It was a little messy. And these little black bits of plastic, if you're dremeling them, I did that all with 1 bit. So that's actually decent long life there. But these little plastic black bits, when they fly around, they get kind of hot if they land on you. They're not like molten metal, but they're not too far off. They sting a little bit. Well, I discovered accidentally that if you see here, there's a seam here and on the other side. And this is actually where the frame, if you would call it that, if you will, of the driver, it actually mounts the cone of the driver to the frame. And this part here, this extra part, actually comes off pretty easy with just a snap of the pliers and sort of a, I guess, a glue or sonic weld line. I don't know how they put it together, but I was worried about earlier the motor structure being held in place by that, but it's just the bottom part that it holds into. And this part here can be removed fairly easily with just a little bit of torque on the needle nose, and it sort of snaps right off. So everything's still in place. So that's what I'm going to do to the rest of them. This just makes a tidier little package, and the only thing I really have to clean up a little bit are these edges, or maybe a big blob of silicone will render cleaning that up a moot point. So I guess they're close enough. I purchased 8 of these, and it's funny, but only 1 of them came with the extra leads attached that 1 or 2 of the reviewers had mentioned. And basically, it has the same 4-pin connector coming out of it that the other ones use. But this one also has another connector attached to it with 2 pairs of leads and connectors coming out. And there's also 2 capacitors. So that's pretty obviously for connecting a tweeter, maybe for some more high-end. Like I said, these roll off at about 7K or so, and a couple of tweeters would really liven things up a little bit. So I think that's probably what that's for. But if you got one of these with the extra leads, don't worry about it. You can just clip those off, and the same 4-lead connector that all the rest of them use, you can just use those to power the speakers with. The amplifier I intend to use for this project, which I've also done a video on as well, is fine with 12 volts, and so is the VU meter that I plan to use. This one's 7 to 12 volts if memory served. And my plan is to tap into the Bluetooth daughter board on this amplifier to find the audio output going from the daughter board into the main amplifier, to borrow that to send the audio signal to the VU meter. It sounds fairly easy, and it should be, but there could be issues. Anytime you power up 2 devices with 1 power source, and you have an audio signal connected to both devices, you do create the opportunity to introduce noise into the audio signal through the ground lead. Dealing with that noise is not the end of the world, but it will add a little cost and complexity to the build, and I'd like to avoid that if I possibly could. But really, the only way to know for sure if you're going to have an issue with noise or not is to just test it out. So that's what we're going to do right now. Okay, well, I have the board powered up here. I'm feeding it 12 volts. I'm feeding it the same 12 volts, negative and positive here, coming from my power supply, that I'm powering the spectrum analyzer with. Now, I told you that there might be issues with ground causing some strange things to happen. Well, I tested this out, of course, before I hit the record button, and yeah, getting some little weird stuff going on. Let me demonstrate it by playing a copyright-free track from the YouTube library on my phone, sent Bluetooth to this amp board, and specifically that Bluetooth daughter board there, which is what we're actually trying to steal the signal from. That little bugger right there. I've had the other side of the board. I'll put a picture up. But these pins here from the right over are 5-volt positive input, ground, left and right signal. So this second one here should be ground, and then the next one should be left positive and right positive, the one after that. So I'll just take the second and third one, and I'll try to get a signal from that with these yellow and white wires. You can see that's doing a little something. That really shouldn't be moving, but I don't know what kind of noise is going on. But as I said, this VU meter is sharing the same 12 volts that this is powering this, and that's it. There's no signal going anyplace. I haven't, it's on, but there's no audio playing. So let me play some audio here if I can get my phone to work. Press play. Okay, that's a little loud. Let me turn that down. Okay. So what's happening here is the VU meter is doing something. That looks like it's going with the music, but I'm not really sure. But the audio part isn't connected. This yellow and white lead, this is what's supposed to send audio to the VU meter. And they're not doing anything, and they're not connected yet. So let me try and connect. Hopefully I don't squirt something out here. I can't see too good, but I'm going to be a little bit in the way. I'm trying not to be. I have fat hands, so hopefully you can still see the VU meter through my fat hands. But let me, oh gosh, this is hard. There. That looks like it's acting normal with the music. Oh wait, I'm not even connected. Criminy, this is difficult. Now this is, yeah, you can see there, it's going with the music. Let me take it off. Well, there ain't nothing playing, so why is it doing that? Now, it's not doing anything now because I think what happened was the song ran out and the Bluetooth kind of went on pause on my phone, but let me put it in the beginning. And see? We got something going on, but this yellow and white lead here, this is what takes the signal to the VU meter. Right now the VU meter is just connected to 12-volt power. So why is it doing that for? I don't know. These are the things you deal with when you want to tinker around with this stuff. So the idea is to steal the signal from the daughter board, which is going to be a constant signal because you're going to have your phone up to a certain volume to send it to this board. So that way you'd always have a pretty good representation of signal going to the VU meter. It wouldn't be like too low when the volume on the amp's too low because it doesn't take signal from the amp, it's taking signal from the daughter board, which is getting Bluetooth. So, this is sort of a logical place to draw a signal from. But, criminy, I'm not even got it hooked up yet and it's already gone berserk. But let me do it again. Let me try to connect. I gotta turn the light on so I can see what in the world I'm doing, but sorry about that. But let me try to get my fat fingers out of the way and do that again for you. And see if we can... Jeez, the song's gonna run out before I can even get these leads on here. Why was I cursed with Shrek fingers? Alright, here. I know it's irritating because my fat hand's in the way, but... Oh, jeez. See what it's doing? I can't get it good enough. I'm gonna have to redo this with... Okay, well, I tried this again and I was able to find some little clippy wire things where I could connect signal from the daughter board pins from the ground and the audio, right or left, that doesn't matter, output, to go into the VU meter. So that's what I've done. So the VU meter is powered with the same 12 volts that the amp board is powered with. They both run on 12 volts. And the signal is going from, let's see this here, oops, let me not mess it up. I got ground, and then I got left channel from the daughter board, which is receiving Bluetooth. It's sending it to the amp, and I'm borrowing that signal here to go into the VU meter. So let me press play. Okay. Now we got music, and it appears that the VU meter is going with the music, which is what it's supposed to do. Now let me turn the volume down on the on my phone. Now, it's still registering, but it's low. So let me bump it up a little more. All right, now I'm on the first red volume bar on my phone. So if I go down one till it's out of the red into the blue, I guess to save your hearing for earphones, but that's a good level because it's not in the red the whole time, but it's pushing that red up almost to the peak. So that seems like that would probably be a pretty good volume. So if you left your phone at a volume that was maybe 2/3 or so, you're getting plenty of signal to the amp board to run the VU meter and to get some good signal. And if I crank this up, I don't know how well you can hear that, but that's really loud. Like, oh my gosh, loud. This is a decent little amp. Sorry I'm shouting, it's probably overloading, but anyway, this is a decent little amp. That really gets kind of loud. So anyway, I'll put the volume very, very low so maybe you can just hear it. But the VU meter is doing its thing. Let me rewind it, it's about ready to reset. VU meter is doing its thing, but look, watch what happens. I'm going to disconnect one of the leads feeding the audio signal to the VU meter. And it's still doing something. And I'm not exactly sure why, but those are the things that happen when you have two items sharing the same power source and an audio ground going between them. The ground can do all kinds of funny things and find a way to mess everything up. So yeah, it looks like there's audio input into the VU meter, but there isn't. It's not connected. In fact, let me just disconnect both of them just to prove it to you. They're both disconnected. That white and yellow lead there, they're not touching anything. It looks like it is probably, but it's not. And I'm still getting dancing lights on this thing, although I'm not really sure what it's hearing because I can't hear what it's hearing because it's just lights. But at any rate, it does work with the, I can take the signal from these two pins here and it makes the VU meter work, and I don't hear any noise issues on the speakers while it's playing. There's no hissing or weird extra noises that shouldn't be there. So this works, but just a little weird, I guess. You know, I actually half expected this. On one project in the past, I was troubleshooting an amplifier and preamp pairing that I was trying to work on, and there were some noise issues. And while it was playing, I removed the 12-volt negative lead from the preamplifier, which should have turned it off, but it didn't turn it off. It stayed on with just the 12-volt positive lead connected to it. How is that possible? Well, there were the three lines coming from the preamp to the amplifier, the left, the right, and the ground leads of the audio signal. And the ground lead of the audio signal that connected the amplifier to the preamp was supplying the negative voltage that the preamplifier needed to run. It sounds plausible, it sounds weird, but it actually happened, and I've had it happen to me a couple of times. It just goes to show what kind of weird things can happen with ground issues when you have an audio signal as well as power going to more than one device at the same time. We had this powered up with the same 12 volts that this was powered up with. And even though I had not connected the audio input into this, it was still going with the music. And of course, when I connected it to the appropriate music leads, the left and the ground on this amplifier, things went a lot more smoothly. But I think this was sort of reacting to the music, even though those leads were not even hooked up. Just goes to show how weird things can get when you have ground issues between audio components. Now that I've done surgery on the speaker module and it's no longer in its own vented cabinet, I have to design an enclosure for it. Usually that wouldn't be a problem. You just connect the Dayton Audio DAT system to it and you get the TS specs for it, and then you're off to the races. But I think since this unique driver has two voice coils and they're not concentric, meaning they're not on one cylinder, I wasn't able to get good reliable TS parameters for it. So my plan is to basically duplicate the internal volume of the original plastic cabinet that it came in. It looks to be roughly 21 cubic inches with a vent of about 3/8 of an inch by 2 3/8 of an inch long with a small round over on the exit. It sounded good with that setup, so I'll just duplicate that in the new cabinet and that should work just fine. So here's a quick peek at what I think this will end up looking like when it's finished. This is a top-down view. So here the speaker drivers are facing front. I plan to cut out the openings just a bit larger than the frames themselves and use some caulking adhesive to hold them in place. The vents, they'll be in the rear, and I will include a small round over on the cabinet exit side, just like the originals had. The amp, well, that'll probably be in the middle, either down low like I showed in the previous sketch, or possibly even up at the top with a nice beefy volume knob up there. Not sure on that one yet. I'll let the design talk to me a bit when I get further along. The VU meter will be centered in the middle front, and I think I'll create dividing walls inside to have two separated cabinets to avoid any issues. Oh, and since the amp has really good power output with 12 volts, I'll just wire up the two speaker voice coils in series for a 12 ohm load to each side of the amp. The amp will probably be a bit happier with that as opposed to 3 ohms if I wired them in parallel. So now that we've sliced and diced the speaker modules to get to the raw drivers, and we hooked up and tested the amp and VU meter to be sure that they'll play nice together, I think we're finally ready to make some sawdust. I hope you'll stay tuned for that build-off video coming soon. Well, that's it for today. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.
What?